Welcome back, everybody. In the last video, I talked about how Adventure Island is a clone of the arcade hit Wonder Boy, replacing main character Tom Tom with the former executive for Hudson Soft, except stripped down to a hula skirt. The Wonder Boy franchise went on to become more RPG bound from this point, while Adventure Island worked to expand on its prehistoric platforming roots. Today I'll be discussing that very style the series is known for, starting with its debut and moving along to its two remakes, the Japan-only PS2 GameCube game, and a WiiWare title I just happened to pick up before Nintendo made it no longer possible to add money to the Wii Shop Channel service. Adventure Island, the first in the series, is an NES platformer, and as such, comparisons to Mario are apparent from the start. The goal is to simply make it from the left of the stage to the right, avoiding obstacles by running and jumping. There's power-ups, though all but the skateboard don't allow for extra hits, temporary invincibility in the form of the less iconic but cuter Honey Girl, and smaller point-racking collectibles. So this is all fine, but what makes this game so varied from the rest of its competition is a vitality meter. Master Higgins is a hungry boy with an inhuman metabolism, and must feed on floating fruits to survive this quest. This means the meter gradually decreases with time, and if it reaches 0, our chubby hero will collapse from exhaustion. It adds a layer of strategy and allows for the level design to shine for fairness in difficulty, as the foods are placed in tricky but never unreachable locations that work to tempt you into making a mistake. The game is actually designed around these player faults, in fact, and it is a very, very difficult challenge because of this. With that said, I recommend doing one of two things for maximum enjoyment. The only way to restart from an area where you died is to obtain a secret item, the Hudson Soft logo at this spot towards the end of the opening stage. The best goodies are contained in invisible eggs, only revealed when the player jumps in the spot it's hidden. If you think that's absurd, you can tell there's something there because there's collision when a hatchet's thrown at it. But otherwise, these things are simply found by accident when hopping through the stage an umpteenth time. This item isn't just an Easter egg though, it grants the unique ability to resume play even after a game over, just like pressing A and the start button at the same time on the title screen in NES Mario. Instead of being forced to restart everything for heavy punishment, you're only penalized slightly and must go back to the start of the current level, dismissing checkpoints, losing your score, oh no, and any upgrades. This is done by holding any direction on the D-pad, then pressing start at a game over screen. It's significantly helpful because I don't think on my first playthrough there was a single level I didn't die at least once. Each stage is a monumental challenge in its own right, requiring the player to really learn the area and keep trying again. Without this feature, the game would be borderline unplayable. I can't imagine being booted back to the start every time, and I certainly wouldn't have trained to get that good, because the skill requirement is insane. There are ways to get extra lives, of course, but 50,000 points is hard to come by, and the only other way is by collecting 3 very hidden rings in a row. This alternative way of playing transforms the game's levels to be contained challenges that restrict you to the default 3 lives, to train and learn the layout of the stage as you slowly master it. My next recommendation is save states, but if you're like me and want as authentic an experience as possible, you use them in a selective way. I suggest only as backup for when you're frustratingly mashing the start button to try again quickly, but accidentally kick yourself back to World 1-1. I did this plenty of times, so I kept backups, and I don't consider it cheating, because I'm not creating restore points midway through the level. It's fine if you do want to play it that way, but it's nothing Hudson Soft originally intended for. I do commend those that don't even use the logo save method at all, but I'll take a hard pass on it. In my run of Adventure Island, the brown frogs were the most rage-inducing thing in the entire game. They only approach when Higgins draws near, but they'll leap and bound without mercy. There's plenty of ways to avoid them. You can run directly at them or hightail it to the left of the screen and jump over them, but since everything is a one-hit kill to this sensitive beefcake, you'll be sure to tense up at the wrong moment when one appears on screen. And the developers definitely knew this, so they made sure to put them in the most trolling of places in the level. They even take 2 hits to defeat, rather than the one that makes most enemies fall, and can be turned into a demon when their innocent green frog brethren are whacked. The only other haunting presence in this game is, funnily enough, not the literal floating skulls. It's something much, much more sinister. An eggplant. An eggplant with eyeballs that looms over Higgins until he's near death, sucking away precious nutrients instead of providing them. And this is all apparently just because they're his least favorite thing to eat. I don't know what caused the rise of malevolent eggplants in this early gaming generation, but be on your toes next time you pass the produce department, lest you be spellbound by their wizard. So with that odd transition, we're brought to the first remake of the NES Classic, Japan's Hudson Selection Volume 4, releasing in 2003. It's faithful in respecting the ideas the original presented, revamping the visual design and boasting a better quality soundtrack by instrumenting the chiptune one, which was great in its own right. In terms of what style appeals to you more, it can go either way, but this was a cool way of placing Higgins in a pseudo 3D environment. Everything looks and sounds great. It feels almost exactly like the original too, for better or for worse sometimes, so this is the way to go for a direct adaptation. Something you'll notice fairly quickly is that the boss fights are completely reworked and handled 1,000 times better than the original. On NES, the levels were the sole challenge. The big bad encounters, even that of the evil witch doctor, were the same predictable fight with a new skin. And I mean the exact same fight with no change in attack pattern, just a different head. The bosses here are visually interchangeable again, but with more subtle differences like their shield design. But the real outlier is that they actually have an assortment of interesting varied attacks that aren't too tough to catch on to. One encounter you'll be dodging a spike ball that increases in size after each volley, and the next a summoned windstorm with poor frogs, the pacifist ones swept up as obstacles. One of these sorcerers can even transform Higgins into a scared little pig that auto-runs across the stage. This was all a blast, seeing what creative battles come next, a far cry to the rehash of simply getting it over with like the original. This game also does a fantastic job of integrating a more modern gen reward system. If you get a 90% or higher in each level, which I myself did because I had so much fun with it, you'll get a Hudson Soft stamp called Hachisuke. The more that are gathered, the more bonus content is unlocked. Starting off real strong with ability to change the OST to 8-bit or watch a collection of old commercials from the franchise. The gift for collecting every stamp in the game is a Smash Bros. Trophy-esque model viewer, where you can look in depth at the game's cast of characters. Nowadays there's external resources online that allow you to do this for free, but as an internal feature in the actual game, it's a really neat prize. And from there, traveling 6 more years into the future from this point leads us to Adventure Island: The Beginning, a second remake of sorts, and unfortunately, the last Adventure Island title to ever be released as of this video. Right away, you'll notice that compared to his last adventure, the presentation is poor. It has a similar visceral experience by using better looking 3D models, but the animation here is jerky, and a lot of the charm from the Hudson Selection is absent. Scalding lava, rain, and wind effects, they're all gone, and the backgrounds are drastically simplified to give a rushed feel. If we were to only look at these 3 games, The Beginning is the least polished. Character movements simply aren't fluid, and the OST consists of a whopping 3 tracks. Entirely new tracks, but each level of World 1 and 3 will use one song, while every stage of 2 and 4 will use the other. While all my complaints are cosmetic, the one saving grace is that it does bring interesting gameplay to the mix. At the end of the day, I appreciated most the incentive to collect golden melons that unlock weapon upgrades, and more importantly, new abilities for Higgins to maneuver the stage with. One move, for example, allows Higgins to double jump, easily the most helpful, while others can save you from a fall with a ledge grab, or float slowly down by ridiculously flapping your arms. How that works is beyond me. Bomberman even makes an appearance in a 2-player assist mode where he drops bombs that can kill you whether on purpose or by accident. There's achievement-based rewards I really liked that aren't simply completing a percentage of the stage too. These are called Master Higgins feats and allow you to swap out the protagonist's outfit with different colors. Simple, but it works. The biggest change by far, and one I actually don't mind, is that the level difficulty is changed. No longer does everything one hit kill you, it now only takes a good chunk of vitality away to call for faster fruit collecting. The foods themselves even last significantly longer than the other games too, so everything's made easier, right? Well, the others were built around checkpoints, each level having 4 signposts that denote progress. In the beginning, there are 0 checkpoints, so stages are instead crafted to be beaten in one shot. I'd say this game is easier than the rest in general, but its toughness is reworked rather than outright removed. The boss fights are, you guessed it, palette swaps, but different enough. Puppet Plant Man, Yeti whose belly becomes exposed in its second phase, which is weirdly unsettling, an aquatic god that looks tough but can be dispatched in seconds, and the final boss as another reimagining of the evil witch doctor. I can say that overall it's much more variety than the first game, but after the more faithful remake I couldn't help but expect more from this outing. Plus only 4 worlds seems kind of lazy, though I wouldn't mind so much if there were more level types. One other aspect this title adds are new gameplay modes, specifically a selection of minigames that add to replayability. However, they're pretty rough around the edges themselves, with jankiness turned up a notch. The skateboarding one was my favorite, mainly because it's the most fun, but also because it actually had a realistically obtainable high score. The others are ridiculous, most notably a virtual recreation of the device that made Takahashi famous, the shooting watch. It tests your button mashing skills, and the actual goal is to match his incredible record of 16 presses per second. Are you serious? I'm honestly a little blown away that they decided to lock an achievement behind his legendary feat. The highest I could get to is 10 presses per second, and I know I must be pretty speedy because I can beat most people at the rapid fire Mario Party minigames. Let me know in the comments if you want to take me on this. Adventure Island at the beginning had a lot of potential. Even Takahashi himself had high hopes for it. Though Hudson Selection Volume 4 is the much better choice of the two. Probably of this entire trilogy unless you really appreciate good sprite work and want the immense challenge. In honesty, I can recommend them all for different reasons, but this to me is the masterpiece of classic Adventure Island. It's a perfected formula doing the original right, and well worth your time is arguably the definitive version of Adventure Island. Thanks for watching everyone. In the next video I'll continue on with the platforming Adventure Island sequels, 2, 3, New, and Super, before delving into the real good stuff, the 2 RPGs. See you next time.